Hi class, how are you today? That's good to know. The learning target for today is to construct lines and angles using a compass and a straight edge. For the scale, you're a 3 if you can construct lines and angles with no help. You're a 2 if you can construct lines and angles if you use your notes. You're a 1 if you can construct lines and angles if you watch the video, and that's watching the video while constructing. Hopefully you watched this whole video. And you're a 0 if you cannot construct lines and angles, even with the video or notes. All right, let's get started. Okay, so today we're going to be constructing a bunch of figures. And for most of them, and even ones we're going to do later, you can construct using a few basic constructions. So this first one we're going to do is the most basic construction. This is copying a line segment. So we're going to use a compass and a straight edge to copy this line segment we see here in a different spot. So first thing we want to do is make a point anywhere on your paper. There's a point. Then you are going to take your compass and you're going to put the point on the end of the line segment and then adjust your width so that it is exactly the length of the line segment. And this is called measuring the line segment. So if I ever say measure, I don't mean measure with a ruler, I mean measure it with your compass. So adjust your compass width to this width, and then place your compass point on the point, and then make an arc, like so. Then you are going to take your straight edge and from the point to the arc, draw your line segment. And there is your new line segment. All right. Now we're going to build off copying a line segment construction, and we are now going to construct a line segment that is the sum of line segments. So we're going to take these two line segments here, and we're going to create a new line segment that is the sum of those two line segments. So we're going to essentially add up the lengths, and the new line segment will be those two lengths combined. So the first thing we do is we take our straight edge and we're going to make a line that's pretty long. Doesn't matter how long it is, just as you're pretty sure it's longer than those two line segments combined. Then we take our compass and we measure the first one. Again, when I say measure, I say just adjust the compass width. And we place it on the end of that line and draw an arc. Then we adjust our compass width and put our point on the other line. So now we're at the width of the other line, and we put our point on the intersection of the first arc we made, and we make a new arc. And now, finally, we make a point somewhere else on the paper, And now we copy the line segment. So we put our point at the beginning of the line and adjust our width all the way to the other one. And then we put our point on the point, make the arc, and then with our straight edge, draw the line. And we now have a line segment that is the addition, the sum of those two other line segments. Now what we're gonna do is pretty much the opposite of what we just did. Now I want to take these two line segments and I want to find the difference between them. So I want to find a new line segment that is essentially this big line segment minus this little line segment. So the first thing I'm going to do is copy the top line segment, the bigger line segment. So same way I did the copy a line segment construction, I place a point, and then I place my point at the end of the line segment, adjust my width, and then place my compass point on the point and make an arc. Then take my straight edge and connect the point to the arc. And that's the big line. And now to subtract the length of the small one, I place my point on the small one. Adjust the width, and now I place my point at the end of the line segment and make another arc. And now, one more time, I'm going to copy a line segment, so I place another point, and then I'm going to place my point at the first arc intersection, adjust the width to the second arc intersection, and then at that new point, I'm going to make an arc. And then finally, with my straight edge, I connect them. And that is the new line segment. That is the length of the big line segment minus the small line segment. Another basic construction that we're going to be using a lot is the perpendicular bisector construction. What a perpendicular bisector is a line that goes through a line segment exactly in half, cuts it in half, that's the bisector part, and also at a 90-degree angle, that's the perpendicular part. So a perpendicular bisector cuts a line segment in half at a 90-degree angle. So that's what we're going to do here. So first, I'm going to take my compass and I'm going to place it at the end of the line segment, like so. And then I'm going to adjust the width so it's more than halfway. And you can definitely eyeball it here. As long as you know for a fact it's more than halfway, then it's long enough. You don't have to measure halfway, it just needs to be more than halfway. So once you're absolutely sure it's more than halfway, that's good. And then you're going to make an arc above the line and below the line. And then, without changing your compass width, you're going to go to the other end and do the same thing. Make an arc above the line and below the line. And notice how we now have two intersections. So now we're going to connect the intersections. With our straight edge. And that is our perpendicular bisector. All right, next we are going to draw a line segment that is perpendicular to this line that goes through this point here. So we can't just use the perpendicular bisector because the perpendicular bisector will go through the middle, and that point is not in the middle of that line segment. So what we're going to have to do is make a couple more points that make it so we kind of make a new line segment where that point is in the middle. So what we're going to do is place our point on that point, and then we're going to adjust the width so that it's smaller than the smallest part we have left. Because if you notice, this part here is smaller than this part here. So I know if I were to twist this around, it would hit the line segment in both spots. So now I'm going to take my compass and I'm going to make an arc here. And then I'm going to turn it to the other side, and I'm going to make an arc on the other side. So now those two arcs are the same distance from the point. So now I can take my compass and now putting it at one of the arc intersections, I can adjust so it's more than halfway. And now I'm doing the perpendicular bisector construction. I make an arc above, and I make an arc below. And I go to the other arc intersection and do the same thing. And then I connect them. And now I have a perpendicular line going through that point. All right, now I want to draw a line that is perpendicular to that line that goes through this point. And notice that that point is not on the line. So I'm going to take my compass point and place it on the point, and then I'm going to extend my width so the compass goes past the line. But I also want to check to make sure that it will hit the line on both sides. And now that it will, I make an arc on both sides. And now I can use the perpendicular bisector construction because the middle of those two arc intersections is where I want to draw my line. So now I place my point on one of the arc intersections, And I can adjust my width to more than halfway, that's all I need. And I make an arc above and below. And then I switch to the other one. And I make an arc above and below. And I don't have to do above, but I like doing it so that we're doing the perpendicular bisector construction again. And now I have a perpendicular line that goes through that line segment. That also goes through that point that's not on the line. Okay, here's another of the basic constructions. All right, next I'm going to copy this angle. I want to take this angle and I'm going to copy it somewhere else. So the first thing I need to do is I need to draw a line segment. It can be any size, it doesn't matter the size, but I need a line segment. And then I'm going to take my compass and place it at the vertex, that's the corner of the angle, and I'm going to draw an arc that goes through the angle. And then I'm going to place my point on the end of the line segment I drew, and I'm going to make the same arc. Then I'm going to take my compass and I'm going to place it at the first arc intersection, and I'm going to adjust my width so that the lead is at the second arc intersection. And then going to the arc intersection of the other line segment, I'm going to place my point and then make an arc that goes through that first arc. And then from the end of the line segment to the intersection of those two arcs, I'm going to make a new line segment. And now I've copied that angle. Notice it's not the same length, but that's not what matters. It's the same angle. The angle measure is the same. It has the same number of degrees in that angle. All right, now I'm going to do another construction that uses the copy the angle construction. So I want to make a line that is parallel to this line here. So parallel, remember, means it's going in the same direction, and no matter how long the line gets, it will never touch. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to draw another line segment that goes through that line. I'm going to draw a line segment, can be any size, and it's going through that line. Then I'm going to use the copy angle method. So I've now created an angle by doing that. So I'm going to take my point, place it on the intersection, adjust my width a bit, and then I'm going to make an arc that goes through the angle. Then I'm going to place a point somewhere on this line segment, and I'm going to put my point there and make the same arc. Then I'm going to measure the width of that arc. Then I'm going to place my point at the intersection here, and I'm going to make a new arc that intersects that arc. Then, using my straight edge, I'm going to connect the point to the intersection. And now I have a line that is parallel to that first line. Alright, so here's the last basic construction that I'm going to show you today. So this is how to find the bisector of an angle. Remember, bisector means to cut in half. So we're going to cut this angle in half. So we're not cutting the line segments that make up the angle in half, we're cutting the angle in half. So I'm going to place my point on the vertex, the corner of the angle. I'm going to adjust my width, and then I'm going to make an arc. Then I'm going to take my compass and go on that first intersection, and I'm going to make another arc further up. And then I'm going to place my point on the other intersection and make an arc that intersects that one. And then, using my straight edge, I'm going to, from the vertex to the intersection of those two arcs, make a line that bisects that angle. That angle is now cut in half. So I now have two smaller angles. All right, now time for the sponge activity. I have two questions. Number one, what does it mean to be a perpendicular bisector? And number two, what were the four basic constructions that I said can be used to make the other constructions? All right, that's it for this lesson. Once again, please make sure to take notes on the entire lesson. Attempt the sponge, answer both these questions, please. Take a picture of everything, including the sponge activity, submit it all to Google Classroom, and have a good night.